Building is one of my favourite things to do in Minecraft, so here are a load more build ideas that you can use in your Minecraft worlds. First of all, I definitely recommend using some different designs for custom trees. Similar to what I did here with some sort of like autumnal looking tree, I added the new resin blocks, which I think worked really well, as we don't have too many orange coloured blocks, especially not orange leaves, which I really would like. But then you could also mix in some orange concrete powder, as well as some pane glass for extra shape. I think that ends up looking really nice. Alternatively, you could just use all of the resin blocks as a big lump of trees on a default tree, which honestly doesn't look too bad. And for more of a jungle tree design, you could definitely try and use some bamboo as the trunk of a tree rather than using fences or logs or anything. And then you can mix in some jungle leaves and also maybe add in some mangrove leaves as well, because they definitely have a similar sort of design and work really well in warmer biomes. Here are some cool mushroom designs you can do, simply using some diorite walls with a brown mushroom block on top, and honestly, I think these look really nice and can definitely work in like a giant custom forest biome. Another trick you can do with resin on top of custom trees is adding the resin clumps, as it looks a bit like a piece of fruit. You can make a simple like orange tree or something, then even around it you could add some spruce trapdoors with some resin blocks to make it look like you're collecting loads of different fruits. All of these blocks here actually have a secret use. If you look on the underneath, they all have unique textures which could work really well in different builds. I actually really like this loom design. It's a completely different sort of texture to ones you normally see in Minecraft. It almost feels like 2HD almost. Very smooth textures, but you could definitely use that in some sort of build. Same with the underneath of like the smithing table or the fletching table. I think those both look really nice. Same with things like the beehive or the lectern as well. I think that could work really well as sort of a different oak plank design. Plus you're actually able to rotate it as well, which looks really nice. And here's more of a loom roof, and honestly, it just looks so good. I'm surprised I've never actually used this texture before because it just does look really good. Another trick you can actually do with looms is placing them on their side to get this texture, which I guess could look like an empty bookshelf, although now we do have chiseled bookshelves, but it still works, and honestly, it's a really cool wall design anyway. And honestly, I think it'd work really well with jungle wood, so if I had some stripped jungle logs on top. Yeah, honestly, that looks really nice. That could definitely be added to some sort of build. As well as this, you can use beehives as a floor texture, because they are rotational, and they also look a slightly better than oak planks, I think. They're just more smooth, and honestly, they look really good, although they are slightly expensive, requiring 6 oak planks and 3 honeycomb per block. But if you set up a bee farm, this shouldn't be too much of an issue, and this is another build idea. Instead of having like some sort of automatic bee farm, do what I've done throughout my hardcore world, which is simply to create one of these structures, and then you can add the beehives inside with the campfires, and then you can just go around harvesting it. You can do it, I believe, like twice a day or something. So this actually works really well, and it also just looks a lot better than having like a random automatic farm underground or something. Another idea is to incorporate village farms into your build. For example, I've just got this simple house design here, but it's actually an automatic crop farm as well. This villager in the back will occasionally harvest his wheat, walk over to this villager, attempt to throw it, but it will be picked up by this hopper minecart here and collected. So definitely add in some automatic farms, but decorate them properly. Like, don't just leave them out in the open. Decorate them properly with different builds. You could also do something similar for a villager breeder, or as I previously mentioned, a bee farm. Before I move on to some more build ideas, make sure to subscribe, as I want to see how many subscribers I can be on by the end of the year. Another idea you could do is add animal pens into your world, which I definitely recommend doing, even if you're in late game and don't really need like pork chops or chicken anymore. I definitely recommend just building the farms anyway, because it just helps to add more detail and added texture into your world. Another idea you could attempt is to redesign the look of a Minecraft shipwreck by sort of just repairing it, adding in like sails and things. Honestly, I think it looks much nicer. This is actually a boat I've added to my hardcore world, and it's literally just a redesigned shipwreck, and honestly, I think it looks really good, and it saves you having to design your own boat. Another build idea is just this in general. Just have a whole creative flat world which you can fly around with different build ideas, so if you ever need to start a new project in your world, you can just look around and be like, oh, here's a windmill, I could definitely add this somewhere. Or maybe you redesign this somehow, like changing the blocks out. I definitely recommend just having one creative flat world for you to do all your build planning in. Here's a way in which you can create a simple starter base. All you need is a red mushroom, place some ladders along the stem, add some trapdoors as a floor, and you can actually fit in a crafting table, furnace, chest, bed, and even a fox apparently. I did not realise there was a fox in here when I built it, but oh, he's sleeping now, that's quite cute. But yeah, it's just a simple starter base, all using just a mushroom, which you could spawn in yourself by bone mealing. or if you just go into a dark forest, you'll be able to find loads of them. Here are some cool ways to add detail to different types of terrain. For example, this is like an overgrown beach biome. We've got the sand, we've got some sort of like sandy rock pool areas, moss everywhere, mangrove roots, dead coral, buttons and dripstone scattered around. I think that looks really nice. Similarly, I did something here with a gravelly sort of beach, adding some like coal ore, some more rock pools, mangrove roots, sea pickles as well. I think these look really good as sort of their own like foliage item, as obviously they don't glow when on the ground, but if you place them in water they can glow, which is another great use of them, as you'll be able to light up your builds more. And here's a really cool cliff design I designed ages ago, simply just merging from the diorite right at the bottom. Sort of this would be intended to go like by the ocean or something, sort of going up into the cobblestones, into the tuff, into the deep slate, into the smooth basalt. I think this just looks really nice, and I should definitely add it to my hardcore world at some point in the future. Here's a cool berry farm idea you could add into your world, just simply placing the berries in like a row, then adding different leaves and fences around it to sort of make it look like a more natural sort of way in which berries would grow. I believe foxes have probably been around here harvesting all these berries. Here I've got loads of different path designs you could use. Simply here we've got some stone, cobblestone, andesite and mossy cobblestone. Here's some sort of like a dirtier path with packed mud, brown mushroom blocks, mud brick, coarse dirt. I think that looks really nice. Here's one I use throughout my hardcore world. It's a bit boring, but it is just coarse dirt, and honestly it doesn't look too bad. Here's a really cool sort of, this would work more in like an industrial area with a deep slate road, and you could also occasionally add bits of water I guess into the stairs, as if there's sort of rainfall or something, and then you can mix in the two types of deep slate, cobbled and regular deep slate, because they have two different textures, both look really good. Here's a cool moss one you could do, or actually it's not even moss, it's actually azalea plants, with a flowering ones to go along the side. I think this looks really cool, because the azalea bush just has a really cool texture on its own. Here's another cool one. This would work more in like a warmer biome I reckon, with some oak, some stripped oak logs, as well as some mud bricks. Here's more of like a village path with a dirt path block, coarse dirt and planks going through. Here's another sort of deserty one you could do with some sandstone, birch, stripped mushroom blocks, which I wish were easier to obtain, but you need to place a regular mushroom block, surround it with more mushroom blocks, and break it to get this really cool spore design, which I really wish you could just like strip off with an axe or something, because that block just looks amazing. Here's another road idea you could do if you're building more of a city, just some black concrete as well as the yellow lines that go throughout. Here's some nether designs, just with the crimson nylium and nether warp blocks, as well as warped nylium and warped warp blocks. Here's another sort of dirt path design with all the types of dirt, which all look really good. An endstone path here, as well as this path design, which is coarse dirt, packed mud and granite. As you can see, I've used a lot of these sort of similar designs, as honestly these are some of the best blocks within the game. Here's another cool starter base idea you could do, simply just digging into a hill. You can create your own hobbit hole design, which is what I did on my Bedrock Hardcore series, and honestly it looks really nice, simply using the stairs to trapdoors, stairs, more trapdoors and slabs around it. Then you can use different strip logs as sort of a wall design and go in and just interior decorate it, and honestly it works really well as a starter base. Here is another mini mushroom design, this time using pale oak fences with the red mushroom blocks on top. Then you can scatter some red mushrooms around. I think these work really well as well. I mean, I guess you could also switch some out with end rods to make them glow, as in Minecraft, mushroom blocks actually emit a tiny bit of light. Here's another sort of berry bush design you could use. This is more like a vineyard design, and then you could also add some coral blocks in barrels around it to look like you've sort of harvested the berries. You will need to make sure there's water below the coral blocks, otherwise it will die. You could do a similar thing here with glowberries and hang them up. I think that looks really nice. And then also add in some resin clumps on the ground to make it look like the berries have fallen and been crushed over time. Here is a simple workshed design you could add into your world, and every build in your world does not have to look incredibly impressive. It could just be something so small and simple like this build here, but honestly it could still work. And here there is room inside for a villager, which is good, who's called Villager Spawn Egg apparently. But honestly, it's a really cool design you could use, and you could use iron bars as windows, adding fences to it. This is something I like to add on almost all of my builds. Simply an oak log, then add an unlit campfire next to it, so it sort of just look like you're collecting logs. And you could also add an axe onto an item frame on top of it as well to look like you're chopping the logs. Here's a cool like sort of water trough design you could use as well. And you could also add soul sand to the bottom because it sort of looks like a muddy texture. And also it will start summoning bubbles in, which just adds extra detail to your pools of water. This is another industrial build I've done, if I can actually fly over the fence. And it's just scattered with loads of different things. We've got some more crates. We've got mob crates with some pigs for sale if you want them. Some lodestone, some bulbs, different note blocks, another water pool, this sort of like drill design almost. And if you surround it with iron bars, you can actually just put pale fences and you'll be able to walk out, but other mobs won't be able to. Just as a way to not add a door, I guess. You could also add light grey candles on top to just add sort of like extra spikes on top of your iron bars, which I think looks really nice. If you've watched my recent Hardcore World video, you would have seen this area before, and if you haven't, make sure to check out that video after this one. But another build idea is to take part of your Minecraft world, add them into creative, and start redesigning it. Before, this was just like an ugly river area, so I decided to redesign it by adding a wall, adding custom trees everywhere, and honestly it's such an improvement and it looks so much nicer now. Another design you could add along the river is just patches of algae like I've done here, with some jungle, mangrove and azalea leaves with some moss blocks scattered in. I think that looks really nice. And around the riverbanks, add in some mud, muddy mangrove roots and coarse dirt, as well as like sugarcane, peonies, firefly bushes, leaves, just to add sort of like an overgrown feel to the rivers in your world. I think that looks really nice. Another thing you could do is when you're adding in foliage such as bushes, only add them in patches rather than scattering them everywhere, as it just makes it look much nicer and much less sort of like messy. So over here we've only got the bushes, but if we fly over here we've got some ferns scattered around as well, but they're not everywhere, so it just adds some more subtle variation. Same thing you can do with sweet berries or cornflowers or any type of flower really. Same with dandelions, which you could also add wildflowers to now because wildflowers just look so good. Just wish we could have other colour variants in the future. A bit of a spoiler over here for one of my next hardcore episodes, but here's a really cool custom tree you could use. Basically all you need to do is bone meal an acacia tree, replace the logs with oak logs, add some spruce fences as well as some stairs, and then adding in some oak leaves as well, and you get this really cool custom tree, which doesn't necessarily need to be an oak tree because oak trees don't really look like this in the real world, but it could be a really cool design. Honestly, I think it looks a lot better in the savanna biome as the acacia wood stands out a little bit too much. Here's a cool fountain design you could use simply using mud and mud bricks, and then you could also add the mud into the bottom, scatter some candles around, some flower pots, a lightning rod on top maybe, as well as a bell if it is the center of a village. Here are some more desert ideas you could add into your world simply using cactus with new cactus flowers. You could even add the cactus flowers on the floor as well, and then also using sea pickles as sort of like mini cactuses. I think these look really good and work really well next to the cactus. Here's one of my favourite designs to help add variation to the desert, and it is simply just to use the underneath texture of the sandstone stair block, because it looks so much nicer than the regular top of a sandstone, which is simply just a very smooth block. Just using this to add some extra detail to the desert biomes, as if they're maybe like rocks or something and the like rest of the sand's been blown away or something. It just works really well in my opinion. And a bonus of that is you're able to waterlog it and then add sugarcane around as sort of like a hydrated crop throughout the desert, although maybe don't add it everywhere because the desert seems not to have much water in general. And obviously for more decoration you could add in the new dry grass and tall dry grass as more details. But there we go, these are a bunch more build ideas that you can add to your Minecraft world. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe and let me know any build ideas you have in the comments down below.